and it is episode 9 of Lessons from the Journey. I'm your host, Shawnell Brown, and welcome to a masterclass tonight. I am thrilled to have you in the classroom, and if you can as you can see, there's not a starting five tonight. There's just one MVP. I've got my sister, Beth Medley, in the house. She is a, Beth, tell me your title again.
I'm a life and leadership coach.
She is a life and leadership coach. However, family, tonight, Beth is a master and is going to deliver me and help me walk through the journey through my daddy issues. This episode starts a series. This is a two-part series, and in this series, it's called the relationship experience. A lot of times we spend arguing and fighting over the details. Well, this happened, this didn't happen, it was like this, it wasn't like that. So what I realized, you can't argue an experience. I can't argue your experience. I can't argue. My son is graduating tomorrow. And I have had a lot of time this week to really think about his experience as my son. What did he experience as my son? Was it the way I see it in every area? Did I meet those 7 key areas of development for him spiritually, emotionally, mentally, relationally, financially, missionally? Can't even think of the 7th one right now. I'm missing one. But when I think about that, a lot of times I can think about my highs, but what about the lows I missed? So tonight we're going to take a journey through my relationship experiences, going all the way back really to pre-verbal. We're going to this show or this class, this conversation, it's not produced. There's no script. There's nothing manipulated. Nothing's forced. This is truly a conversation whose intent is A, to set me free, and B, to help you live the best life that you can live, that you want to live. Not that you can live, that you choose to live. So, Beth, I'm going to get started and get into this. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? And while you're telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do, please share a little bit about what makes you passionate about this conversation tonight.
So I live in Texas, and I have 6 beautiful kiddos. I don't even know if you know that about me, Sean. Yeah,
Well, I didn't.
yeah, I have 6 of them. There's a whole bunch. My husband, right now, we have been through a really incredible journey launching this business as a coach, and the Lord has been so faithful, and it's definitely been a faith walk. My husband does most of our homeschooling of our oldest kiddos, and so that's kind of what my life looks like an everyday. Look at who I am, but really, as a coach, it's so fun. I had a season in my life where I really didn't even like women. If anybody can relate to that,
Yes, I actually can.
So, and actually,
Yes,
that's part of the daddy issues thing. So I'm sure it'll
it
come back.
is.
I really didn't even like women. I never had a lot of girlfriends. I always had a bunch of guy friends, and I was thrown into a very pink estrogen filled world, very unexpectedly. And in that world, the Lord really grew in me a heart to see women grow and blossom. And I saw what happened when somebody just believed in them and walked with them in the hard things. And
Yes.
my life, I have a very colorful childhood. So came through with a lot of different kinds of trauma. And then
Mhm.
into my adulthood, growing closer with the Lord. And the Lord just kind of brought me on this journey of just some really difficult things. And I remember asking, it was all at once. And I'm like, Lord, is there something wrong with me? Like, did I do something? I'm asking my friends because, one of the things that I say to myself is, I seek wise counsel. And so I remind myself, so I'm going to go ask, is there something going on with me that I don't know, that
Yeah.
I'm not seeing? And my friend went and prayed, and she asked the Lord, and she said, no, Beth, this is part of your training ground. Um,
Mm.
So coming into this, I typically work with a lot of women entrepreneurs, just because I love entrepreneurship. I have just an entrepreneurial spirit. Um, but I also have launched a nonprofit with a sweet friend of mine around trauma healing. And so I do end up doing a lot of emotional wellness coaching in my coaching. And that might not be what someone is coming to me for, but it's just what's ended up happening. So that's a little bit about what I do. I speak a lot about narcissistic abuse and just how the church looks at abuse and has historically handled that. So my heart is really just to be a safe place for people, for women in particular, to come and to be and to speak truth, because we all know, just as Jesus said, the truth shall set us free. And I just love this, and I have to say it.
Yes.
That word truth in the original word actually means reality. That would be a better translation. And so I think when we come from way back, we have this childhood trauma. We don't see the reality of our situations. We see a warped perspective. And so really it better reads, you will know the reality and the reality will set you free. So if we
Yes.
can know the reality of our situation spiritually, emotionally, physically, then we can be able to start walking in some freedom.
Yes. Okay. So the word reality, God has given me word upon word upon word, and it's really amazing how he does that. He drops the word and I'll be like, I didn't even know that word. Like, I didn't even know what that word meant. Like, he said
Right.
things to me like break ranks. I'm like, what the heck is break ranks? I think yesterday he dropped a word guttural in my spirit. And I was like, guttural? I'm like, I knew I had heard it. And I was like, but I wasn't even sure if it was a real word, if it was something I made up when I was writing a rap. I didn't know. So I went and looked it up, but it was like a real word. So reality, even though I knew what it meant, it was a word that the Lord started to literally drill me with. Reality, reality, reality. Let me do something real quick. I want to read a scripture. So, I have a community called the Walking Warriors.
Mm-hmm.
The discipleship community. Our tagline is "We bout that life," right? So we are about the real Jesus, no
Good.
games, no playing, right?
Yeah.
How he walked, what he said, what he did. It is, Jesus, I credit fully to the salvation of my whole mind, my whole being, my whole body. The fact that I'm still here is literally, I want to make sure that I'm very clear. Everything I am, everything I'm doing right now is literally because I want to represent Jesus Christ the way he deserves to be represented. No games, no playing, no pretending. Am I perfect at it? Absolutely not. But every single day I get up with the mission to serve Jesus well and to serve everything that he's given me to do well. So let me read to you the scripture that we had in Walking Warriors last week. And it has literally forced me into a completely new way of thinking. So Romans 8, starting at verse 29, reading through 30. And I'm reading out of the Message, okay? God knew what he was doing from the very beginning. He decided from the outset to shape the lives of those who love him along the same lines as the life of his son. The son stands first in the line of humanity he restored. That's my favorite part. He restored it. But not only did he restore it, he stands first in the line. So he's not shrinking back from it. He's like, I'm going to enter into this thing. I'm going to do the thing first, show you how it's done, take it all for you. I'm going to do the thing. I mean, he's such a functional leader and such a functional parent. The line he restored. We see the original and intended shape of our lives there in him. I want my original intended shape, Beth. I want my original and intended shape. We see it there in him. After God made that decision of what his children should be like, not act like and not look like, but be like, he followed it up by calling people by name. After he called them by name, he set them on a solid basis with himself. So it's not all crazy and schizophrenic and all over the place. His basis with God is solid.
Mm-hmm.
And then after getting them established, what a good parent. After I set them up, they have food, they know the rules, they know how to do it. He still stayed. He stayed with them to the end, gloriously completing what he had begun. I want my original and intended shape, and I only want God, what God begun. Beth, what do you hear as you listen to those scriptures, that word, that truth?
Yeah. I think, you know, we emphasize be, and I want my intended and original shape. And I think that so often we, there's this word sanctification, right? It's this
Mm-hmm.
becoming more like Jesus. And if we are a born again believer, indwelled with the Holy Spirit, the more that we lose and let drop off of us the things that are not part of our true identity, the more that we will be like Jesus. It's not a trying, it's
That's right.
not a striving, and there's not shame when we mess up. And I think
Mm-hmm.
as you're talking about, I didn't know anything about what you wanted to talk about other than the title of this was Daddy Issues. And the
Yeah.
first thing that came to my head is we all need adopting. Every single one of us needs to be
Mm-hmm.
adopted by the Father. All of us need to be adopted by the Father, because the truth is, when we have any kind of issues, whether it be daddy issues or anything else, there is something that is lying to us about our identity. And the first step of knowing who you are is knowing who you come from. And yes, we come from our physical parents, but that has no hold on you. If you are a born again believer, Abba Father is your daddy.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus, the Holy Spirit, they are your parents. And I do want to throw this in, even though this is a daddy issues thing. If you have issues with your mother, God is not male nor female. He
Mm-hmm.
has a mother's heart just as much as he has a father's heart.
Yes, he
And as we
does.
are both made in his image, men and women. And yes, there are certain things that men and women, we have attributes that we bring to the table. God has all of that. So if you have a mother issue, a mother wound, the Lord is enough to fill that too.
Yeah, well, I have them both. I honestly I have them both. My parents were 16, right? So let me just start this. And I want to be very, 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 very clear. I do not blame any person in my life, right? I understand we come from poor training. We do the best that we can do. But here's the reality, and that's the word, the reality. I was born to two 16-year-olds, left at a hospital. So the first 30 days, there's no nurturing, no bonding, no skin to skin. So we know how vital that is. I don't even have a name, I have a number. My name is Girl Six. That's on paper. Girl Six. For 30 days, that's my existence, waiting for someone to claim me and to make a decision on whether they want to bring me home like a puppy. And then from there, I'm taken to foster care in a city where my whole family lives, my father's side and my mother's side, but I'm in a foster care. The months in foster care, I really don't know. There's a surgery that takes place. I don't know. There's not a real clear story. So I don't really know. Um, and then after my mom graduates high school, when I turn one, we move. And now I'm being raised by a 17-year-old because she hasn't even turned 18 yet. She doesn't turn, oh, maybe she is 18. She's 18, right? So she's just turning 18 and we're starting our lives together in a whole nother city and place. And by the time I'm 4, we live in a whole nother city and she's now working and there's no one but her and I. So when we look at the Genesis, my Genesis, let's just talk about spiritual, emotional. Can you imagine what the emotions of a 16-year-old mother who goes to a home for unwed mothers and is left there is like? So that's what I'm taking in through the umbilical cord, right? And then now we're working. So it's stress and trauma. I don't ever remember feeling safe. I don't ever remember feeling like I belonged anywhere. I always felt like I was searching for my space, for where are my people. At 4 years old, I was praying to God for parents while I'm brushing my mother's hair. And I'm praying and asking God, please just give me some parents. I don't know how to do it. And as a kid, I knew I didn't know how to do it. And I sure as hell knew she didn't know how to do it either. So what happens to a child when the purpose, because motive, right? I have something in my business I call the 4 M's: mission, motive, methods, metrics. Mission and the motives are the two most important things. Mission and motive. Where are you going and why are you going there? The motive, when I sat down and the Holy Spirit showed me this week, the reason that your mother had you is because she was proving something. So what happens when the proving something becomes a burden? What happens? That's the foundation of the relationship. So my earliest programming is this. I don't know how to choose anything else. That's why I created these growth and development tracks. That's why I'm so into Root System Reboot. The emotional development, it starts in the womb. What is that child taking in from that mother? What's the experience? When I think of my own child, I was a nervous wreck from the time I was pregnant. I was afraid. I was fearful. I didn't think I was going to be able to carry him. I was financially strapped. I was stressed to high heaven. My relationship with my spouse was a fucking shit show. I was panicking. I was sick. I had infections I couldn't heal. My poor baby, when I think about what his experience was like in the womb, and he was premature, he was having to have spinal taps, that kills me. It kills me because he's still impacted by that today. People don't realize that the choices that people are making and the impacts, you're literally carrying that shit over to children who then have to try to navigate their fucking way through lives that they didn't start this. They didn't ask to come here. I didn't ask to come here.
I think there's so much in it, and I hear so much pain and so much almost like injustice.
Yes,
It
that's what I
feels
feel.
it feels like you're just really feeling like this is just not just. Like, that's
Yes.
fair. I
This
didn't
is
ask,
not fair. Yes.
and it's not, Sean, it's not fair. It's not fair. As you were talking, there's so many things that were coming to my mind. And before we got started, we talked about how this begins way back. And you were talking about, from conception. And I would argue that it goes even further beyond. And
Yeah, I agree with you.
my children, got a lot of them, they love Encanto. Okay. Have you seen Encanto yet? It's one of the latest Disney.
Yes, I love Encanto.
I love Encanto. And this is one that I'm like, I'm cool if you're obsessed with it. Watch it 5 times a day. I don't even care that you're on a screen because you need to learn about generational trauma. Okay. Like,
Yes.
you need to learn about,
Yes.
actually use it as a tool for my brother. I was like, I want you to watch this. And he was like, oh my gosh, you're this person and I'm this person. And mom thinks he's just pushing.
Yes.
And it's beautiful because it really starts way back when. And spiritually, it starts way back when, demons are real. They're real, and they want to destroy you, and they will stay with your family because they hate you. But the beautiful, they think that they're so powerful, but they know when we say Yeshua, when we say Jesus, they have no power because he died, went down, and got the keys back that Adam lost. And he came back and he's like, guys, I'm back and I got the keys. Okay. So, like, we don't have to worry about it because we have now been restored, just like you said in Romans 8. We have now been restored as the people of the earth that are going to set things right. That's our job now.
Mm.
That's our job now. So when you're telling me this story, I hear you say our emotional development starts in the womb. And a lot of what I want to also tell you is it's physical as well. And you probably know this if you've done any study on trauma. The
Oh, yeah, a
American
lot of it.
Yeah, American Psychological Association definition of trauma is not my favorite. Doesn't even mention the nervous system, which
Mm.
really, when we talk about trauma, it's anything that's going to rewire a nervous system. So even in the womb, if a mom has real stress and there's a lot of cortisol running in her system, baby gets that too. So that does affect them physically. And neural pathways are really the way that we renew our mind. And
Mhm.
and what I hear when we go through all this trauma, when baby is crying and then so attends to the baby's needs, baby learns that if they have a need, it will be met. This is attachment theory. It's very real.
Mhm.
Um, aren't familiar with it, anybody watching, please go look it
I
up.
I am very familiar with it.
Yes, it could
Mhm.
explain a lot about why you react certain ways in relationships. But so this happens very early on. Children are not conscious of what's going on. And so even when you're mentioning motive and what was the other one that you
Method,
method,
metrics, mission, motive, method, metrics.
motive, baby children don't have that. They don't
Right.
know, right?
Right.
And what happens is as we grow up with these broken beliefs,
Mhm.
no one's going to meet my needs. That's not true. Your Abba Daddy will meet your needs. You know, no one cares about me. I don't know what I'm doing. No one's here to show me. That may have been true in your childhood, but what happens is we take those beliefs and we bring them into our adulthood, and then we bring them into our spiritual world, and we start believing these lies about God and about ourselves.
Mm.
So much of the work that I do really is identifying the lies that we believe about God and replacing that with truth. Because we all have high values and we have core values. Have
Mhm.
you talked about this with anybody before? High
Oh, hey, so here's what's really interesting, right? Just today, it was like the word core. And I think I said it to my husband. I said something like, "Oh, I'm going down to the core memory or the core." I said something about the core. It's like, let me just say this and then I want you to expand.
Yeah.
God told me in 1997 or early 98 that he was making me a living, breathing testimony of his goodness, grace, and mercy. And what I'm realizing is that he's teaching me, even in my singing, even in my music, he's showing me, see, I'm the teacher and then I have assistants. But I'm teaching you to rely on me because I'm going to teach it to you first. Then I'm going to send in the teacher to back up what I'm showing you so that you have it, the spirit and the truth. My grandmother used to say it all the time, spirit and truth. So to be honest, to answer your question, I just got this from the Lord this morning. So now you're here to
Love it.
expand on it.
Uh, isn't it good?
Isn't he good, girl? Isn't he good, girl?
Good. He's so good like that. So I love it. And I love that I use the word core values because another
I'm
word
so glad you used
are
it.
functional values, but I core on purpose. I didn't know it. I didn't know what the purpose was, but he did. So our high values are what we say we believe. Oftentimes, especially if we've grown up in the church or we know what we're supposed to say, that's going to be up here. And on the surface level, this is what we believe. And then our core values are really what we behave. This is what we
Yeah.
really believe. Okay, so if I have a high value of the Lord is my provider, okay, but my core value is there's never enough because I worry every month about how I'm going to make my rent. If I'm worrying constantly about making my rent, I don't really believe God's my provider. My
That's
core
right.
is he's not. And one I use with my secular clients is okay, up here I believe I'm a badass, okay? I believe that I'm amazing. I have everything I need. I've got the education, and that's our culture too, right? Like boss babe
Right.
here. But then I behave in a way that really hurts myself. So
Yes.
really down here, I believe I'm a piece of crap.
Yes.
Really what's happening.
That's really
Up here, core value down here.
yes. Yes.
So when we're talking
Yes.
childhood, our core, it's like in we're talking a lot of movies today. I'm talking
Hmm.
in Inside Out. They have those core.
I just watched it and just had my coaching. I love the movie Inside Out. And God just had me watch it because I didn't understand Blue's character very well. The blue balls. I did not understand the necessity because I don't like sad. I don't like it. I don't like to feel. But what I had to go through is I had to feel that. And Blue had to touch all those core memories.
She needed it. She needed to be sad. And I think, and that's another thing that's a generational thing, is when it was never okay as children for us, if we weren't okay to have feelings, and
Yes.
if it wasn't okay for us to have feelings, as an adult, we're not going to be comfortable with our children having feelings, and we're going to suppress them. Stop crying.
Or with your spouses having feelings. So then you force the spouse to suppress their feelings.
Or even when,
Can I
even
ask?
yourself, even when you're having feelings.
I'm a master at it. I have worked hard at that.
Yeah.
Can I ask this question? What happens when feelings are suppressed?
Oh, that's a good question. So, I mean, here's the thing. Feelings are not good or bad.
Right.
They're input and they're information. Feelings, and I tell my kids when I have a few toddlers, and when we're raging, toddler raging, one kid, man, he goes in a hi-ya mode. That's what we call it, man. He is like, woo, crazy. And I'm telling him, I'm like, it's okay to be angry. We can feel angry. I know. Oh man, I have felt angry. We want to validate the fact that you're having a feeling.
That's right.
Good thing to have a feeling. And when we don't have them, we have a lack of information. We don't know what's going on. And I think that we do this to ourselves in a lot of ways, because it's one of those things where if I can't see it, it can't see me. Like we put our head in the dirt and we just pretend it's not there, because
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to see it.
Not to see it.
And
They're just
maybe
not going to look at it.
way. Maybe it'll take care of itself. Maybe Jesus said he'll take care of me. He'll just take it. But that's not how walking with Jesus works. He wants to heal your wounds, but he's going to ask you if you want to be healed.
Mm. I have in my Walking Warriors, the Lord gave me an acronym approach God. And I think I may have shared it with you.
Good.
But I'm gonna share it with the class tonight. A is accept the whole reality and decide if you're going to respond or react. What he has shown me is my reactions have been very costly.
Mm-hmm.
Some of my reactions, I want to be very transparent tonight. Some of my reactions have had me sleeping with men that I had no desire to even sleep with, in an effort to fix a wound or a situation because I thought it would make me feel better. Yeah, that would make me feel better. And it created a complete storm that has now, years later, I'm still trying to scrape the residue off of. I've made countless decisions based on, trying to fix a feeling. I guess I needed to say that because I completely just lost my train of thought.
I want to say one thing about feelings. Is that okay?
Yes,
We're in
please.
the middle of approach, but I just feel like
Thank you.
and I've heard this said many times, and it's become a mantra of my life, is feelings are wonderful servants, but terrible masters.
Oh, yes.
They're
Yes.
wonderful servants, but terrible masters. If
Yes.
they control what you do, you're in trouble.
You're in trouble. You're in trouble. You're in trouble. You're just a child. You're a baby.
You're a baby.
You're a
Because
baby with adult responsibilities, and that is so dangerous.
so one of the books I recommend often is it's called Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents.
Woo!
Before
Woo! I'm getting it today.
get it, order it. It's yes, I love it because what it does, and you started this by saying, I don't blame anybody. I think everybody's doing the best they can with what they have, and that's
Mm-hmm.
one of the reasons why I love this book is it kind of helps us take an objective look at our parents. And really, if you're a parent already, an objective look at your own parenting, but that's kind of second, right? You want to deal with yourself first. So it's not blaming or shaming. It's just saying, okay, for whatever reason, whether it's a personality disorder, whether it's spiritual, whether whatever it's going on, we can kind of sum it up by emotional immaturity. So
Mm-hmm.
if you have an emotionally immature parent, these are kind of the things that you're going to be dealing with. So I recommend that book to everybody because I feel like emotional immaturity is definitely more uh, common than not.
Yeah. Emotional immaturity, relational immaturity. I mean, just the relationships, just not understanding that parent is a role
Right.
created by God, that if it's not played properly, people are jacked up. Wife, husband, these are God ordained relationships that when you take them on, they need to be done, or these gates are left open and people are hurt. So when you don't know what you're doing, abuse is inevitable. If I don't, I love Pastor Paul Shepherd says, if you don't know the purpose of a thing, abuse is inevitable.
Mm,
You can abuse the thing. Let me get back to my approach acronym. So, A, accept the whole reality, learn to respond versus react. P, press. Once I decide that God's word is true, now I'm going to have to press into his word and stay focused on what is true, because everything that I'm conditioned to doing is reacting. It's reactive. You hurt me, I curse you out. Reaction. Where God says, turn the other cheek, right? So, and now I'm retrained, I'm being reformed. There's a reformation process that is starting to take place. So that press into the truth is vital. The next is push. Pray until something happens. Prayer is the communication line, and learning how to develop a real authentic prayer life, which is a communication, a conversation, honesty, is developing the relationship. Rest, recover, receive. Those are all positions of humility. They require us to do nothing. It is just the baby in the crib. Come get me. It allows God to be God and us to be in position of child or bride. Because next is overcome pass the test. What is the evidence that I believe what I say? That when the thing that used to cause me to choose to go left, I choose right, and right becomes my normal mode of operation. So then now A comes again. I can appreciate the whole journey. I can appreciate when I was wrong. I can appreciate when somebody else was wrong. I can appreciate God's whole plan, even if it included me coming to the earth with parents that were 16 years old and molestation and affair. I could appreciate that. Then after that is C, cry. Cry and release is vital. It has taken me years to be able to cry, and really the guttural cry.
yeah.
I this week am experiencing kind of cry that I've never had before. I didn't even understand it. I wanted to get away from it, but it is so vital. That's the releasing point. And then last is the H, and that's heal. And what I did not get and have learned in this season is that healing is God's choice of the treatment plan. All I can do is surrender and say, yes, I want to heal. Then he
Mm,
comes in with the treatment plan. And so how the healing takes place, that's all God. I just have to sit there and surrender. That gives me access. It gives me the ability to approach God in reality, freely, open, no stresses. Here I am, Daddy. I can stand here and look you face to face because I walked through all of that. I'm not playing any games with you. That I was so thankful for that approach, God, especially this week. After our conversation, Thursday was brutal. It was
Mm.
literally brutal. I did not want to do this show. I wanted to quit everything. Stepping into reality is really, really difficult. It's difficult. So, yeah, I just needed to get that out, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and I would say too, like the first step to healing any kind of trauma is talking about it. It just is. And whatever we leave hidden in the dark, um, Satan has a chance to play with it. I don't
Yeah.
care how ugly, how like I just had this conversation with someone. It's like if you think that you can't tell someone something because it's going to change how they think of you, or they're going to think I'm terrible or whatever it might be, it is your first signal that you need to tell somebody. And I'm going to
Mm,
caveat that with you need to tell a safe somebody. Okay. And if you've been through trauma, you might have a hard time identifying who your safe people are. And so that is going to be really key. And you can Google how to know if someone's safe, but really people who aren't going to judge you for your feelings, people who are going to hold safe space, someone who's not going to talk about you. Um,
mm.
that needs
Mock
to
you.
mock you. Yes. Mocking's bad. Don't do it. Don't talk to people who mock you. Hands down. Don't. Don't do it. Don't share anything.
Why is mocking so bad? Can you tell me? Because you said that you don't even talk to them. Why is that
Don't.
so bad?
No. Ha, hmm. There is something so evil, I'm going to say it,
Hmm.
about taking somebody's pain and laughing at it. There's just something so broken about it. And I mean, I'm sure that I've done it in my life. I'm sure. But if you're talking to an adult person who does that with you, they're not a safe person because they don't value your your wellness.
Mm.
Value that. And you said a couple things in your approach method that I loved. Healing was that last one, and I want to just say just the truth is that healing hurts.
It hurts.
It hurts so
Oh,
bad.
bad. It hurts so bad.
So bad. So if you can think of a physical wound and compare it to a heart wound, a physical wound often needs debridement, which is horrific. It's
I had
horrific.
one. I
Horrific.
had one.
Was it not
Yes.
the worst pain you had ever felt physically?
6 months after, and when my son was born, so I love that you said I had a wound debridement. So I gave birth to him. I lost half the blood in my body. Woke up the next day. I had a grand mal seizure. Um, and then I had the blood transfusion, went home, and there was an infection that was just brewing and brewing and brewing. And I ended up being back in the hospital very sick. They didn't know what was wrong. Long story short, I went in to have something looked at, passed out in there. When I woke up again, I was being wheeled into surgery, and I had a 4.5 hour wound debridement surgery. They cut me open down to my fascia. And so when the doctor put his hand in there to clean it, you see my arm? We're talking about in there. It was like that for 6 months, twice a day after I gave birth to my son. It was excruciating.
Excruciating.
It's
So
excruciating.
physically, that's what we need because you cannot heal if you have that stuff in you.
Mm-hmm.
Emotionally, spiritually, that is what we need if we are actually going to heal and become that version of ourselves that is who God made you to be, completely sanctified, continuing in the renewing of your mind. That has to happen. And I hate saying that because I don't want anybody to hurt like that, but
But it's the reality.
it's the truth. It is the reality that you have to have that debridement. Healing really hurts. And the
Mm.
other thing, as you were talking about this guttural cry, grief is always a part of trauma. Grieving, you can have grief without trauma. Like if you have an elderly, like someone that's old that dies, that was just, and most people have experienced this in life. It's like, oh, like we're sad, but we can go to the funeral and reminisce about them and be thankful that they're with the Lord. They live this amazing life, you know. So you can have grief without trauma, but you cannot have trauma without grief. You have lost something.
Mm-hmm.
You have lost something. It may have been your childhood. It may have been an entire future or an entire family line. It may have been your child. It may be something that is physical that you lost, or it may be something that's very abstract that you lost, but you still lost something. And so grieving is an extremely important part of healing from trauma and understanding that grief journey. Really important.
Let me ask you this question. What about a bottle? So there's two things that God gave me. He gave me bottleneck. He told me, you're bottlenecked. But I didn't understand what bottleneck meant. But once I had, I met you through Stephanie Sherwood. What up, Stephanie from Tapestry? Hi, boo. I met you through Stephanie on December 5th of 2018. I had a complete breakdown at a Tapestry event, which is not something I normally do, but it was the beginning of this journey. And so understanding that at that time, I had not yet been triggered to the point that I was ready to be broken, but he did break me, and he did break me very publicly. Um, the part of the way I have survived a lot of the things I've been through is by not feeling them.
Yeah.
And I'm a master at shoving it down and retreating until I can come back. What does that do to a person over a sustained period of time? How does it affect them mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally?
Yeah. So there's a lot of ways that we do that. We numb a lot. We use other types of addictions come out of that. Pornography, food, social media addiction. There are a lot of ways that we choose to try to numb so that we don't feel our feelings. And I would say the most apparent, the first thing that came to my head really is that it will eat your body alive. Like physically, you will be ill. Physically, that's what happens. Like the stress, you might not even recognize that you have all these feelings, but your body knows. Your body actually holds our trauma. There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score.
I read it.
Yes. So
Hesselhoff, Besoff, something
yeah,
like that.
yeah. So
Yep.
yes. So our body knows even if we're not consciously aware, and you will start getting fevers, your hair will start falling out, your body will stop,
It
even if
won't heal.
it won't heal, even if you're giving it the nutrients that you need, it won't absorb them. So there, I mean,
Mhm.
like first of all, and I am just the biggest proponent that mental and emotional abuse is also physical abuse, even if there is no hitting involved, because it will wreck your body and your nervous system.
Oh my God,
So,
your nervous system, my bowels can't go to the, I mean, since I was a kid. Since I was a kid, I've been constipated since I was 9 years old.
and
Literally
isn't
9.
often actually we create a lot of our serotonin, most of our serotonin, our neurotransmitter that really we associate with joy, created in our gut. GABA has a lot to do with memory, created in our gut. So having a healthy gut even is really important part of working towards mental health. I have a sweet friend here in my town that I work with. She's a therapist, and she just got certified with, I forget what it's called, but it's specifically around nutrition and mental health, because really there are about 8 major players when it comes to neurotransmitters that affect our anxiety and our depression, those types of things. And really, with our medications, we're only really working on serotonin and norepinephrine, really just 2. So it's really important to know what types of foods we can consume to start helping those things as well. I got off track with that. I don't know why I'm saying that.
No, it all
But
goes together. I want to ask this question though. When you listen to somebody's medical history, how much can you tell about their life by listening to their medical history?
I think that's a really interesting question. I don't know that I have the expertise to really be able to know that, but I mean, if there is recurrent stuff, I would wonder how much stress is involved. Like if there's just infections that won't go away, if there are things that are just continuing, and there are some specific um, illnesses that I know are linked, IBS, things like that are definitely linked to mental health, because and even like adrenal fatigue, super, super important.
Mm.
Go to your PCP and they might be like, your adrenals are fine. And you go to a functional doctor and they're like, your adrenals are
Our
jacked.
mess.
So I think learning, and that's a whole nother like journey of being able to, talk about our bodies and how we hold all of this stuff and the things that we can do physically to help us. But when we stuff our emotions, I think that there's another thing that happens, spiritually. And this is what I've learned. Okay. As humans, we're made in God's image. So we're triune beings. God is a triune God. We don't really know how that works, right? All
Hmm.
one, but three people, we don't know. It's a mystery. We won't know about it. But we're kind of like that too. We have our physical bodies, we have our soul or our mind. It's where our emotions live, and we have our spirit man. Okay,
Hmm.
so what happens is if something happens in one of these three places, very quickly it starts affecting the other two. So if you have a physical trauma, like something that happens to you physically or an illness, very quickly you may start feeling that in your emotions. You're going to start feeling depressed. And then if you're feeling depressed and it's in your emotions and in your physical body, real quick, the enemy's going to be like, oh, there's a nice little hole for me to put my finger in, right? It's
Hmm.
going to coming as spiritual attack too. So we have to be really mindful to know, like, okay, I'm under something. What we want to do is figure out, okay, where did this start? Because it might be a hormonal imbalance that you're dealing with, and then that turns into a huge depression, and you're trying to treat it with with you're trying to pray this thing away, but you have a hormonal imbalance.
That's
Like
right.
you need some physical help for that, and then yes, we can deal with the other things. But I think it's important to know that whatever we're dealing with in one area, it's going to start affecting all of those other areas too. And when we talk about being raised in talking about our childhood, parents, our main role for our children is to reflect the father.
That's it.
Our main role, I know that when I am parenting my child, they are getting from me some type of communication about how God is. This is how God is, right? And do I do that perfectly? Oh no. Oh no.
No,
No, no. And I think part of that is telling them that and apologizing. I apologize to my 2-year-old, and not putting on them the responsibility of being in charge of my emotions. And that's part of
that's
having,
right. Oh my God.
like good
Yeah.
boundaries, say this is what I'm responsible for, and that's what
Yes,
you're responsible for. And so I'm not going to sit here and say you are driving me crazy, because then
that's right.
did something to make me be not okay. But my kids will be like, Mom, are you dysregulated? I'm like, yes, I'm dysregulated, like, and that's a real thing. Okay. Like, I'm telling you, a lot of children in a small space, like, sometimes you just need to buy some like earplugs. That's real. Like, I'm for serious.
Yeah,
Like overstimulation, that's a real thing.
that's a
There,
real thing.
you're not okay. Put some,
Hmm.
and you can still hear them enough to know that they're not dying, but you're just not, it just dampens things a little bit. So, I mean, knowing our triggers and knowing what's going to dysregulate us, is really helpful, because as a parent, my job is to take my child and to co-regulate with them when they're dysregulated
Mm.
out. I'm a safe place for them, and they lay on my chest and they hear my breathing and they hear that I'm not freaking out. So it's totally safe. You don't need to freak out. And the thing about us, people who had parents who couldn't regulate themselves, we then don't know how to regulate ourselves. So we're going to learn from Abba Father. Okay, Father, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to deep breathe, and I'm going to imagine that you're sitting right here with me and I'm in your lap and I'm laying my chest on my head on your chest and I'm hearing your heartbeat. And so I'm going to imagine God's heartbeat while I do some deep breathing. And I'm going to be teaching myself and allowing the Holy Spirit to teach me that I'm safe. If
Mm.
my amygdala is back here telling me, you're not safe, you're not safe, you're not safe, I need to retrain my brain, build new neural pathways, be drawn up to this forefront of my brain where relationship lives. This is where
Mm.
this is where fear lives. So we want to be drawn up here. And even I heard, I think Christine Hoover was the one that taught about this, is even in the garden, as Adam and Eve were hiding, their amygdala took over, they're hiding, they're afraid. And God walks in the garden and calls their names. Where are you? Drawing them up here, relationship, calling out to us.
Mm.
So
Mm.
yeah, I mean, this is where we get messed up, but this is where we get healed because we have a good daddy that is everything that we need. Everything. And even in Isaiah, he says, I am faithful to teach my children. And as a mom, that gives me a lot of hope because I know what I miss, he won't.
He won't miss it. He won't miss it. He won't miss it. Oh, that's so good. So, really, my job as a parent is to be honest and not misrepresent the father, because
Mm,
the misrepresentation of the father is actually working for Satan, because you're assisting Satan in his job of deceiving your children.
right. And I would give this caveat too, like sometimes people are such good parents that then people get grown and they haven't ever really felt a need to feel adopted by God the Father. So like
Mm,
every
that's good.
every person is responsible for looking to God and saying, I need you to to adopt me. And I need this to be my first identity. Your daughter, your son. That is the first thing that defines me. And when I first started going through this spiritual journey of coming out and really learning, seeing the abuse in my life, seeing the things that were not healthy, seeing the things that I perpetuated. And I'm not somebody that like spends money on things in general.
You said
Definitely not
on things, on
on things,
anything.
on really anything. I have 6 children. Okay, money's a thing, and I was taught that there was never enough. That was something I grew up with. Okay, so I've
Yeah.
had to replace that with the fact that I have an abundant God, and my daddy has, cattle on 1,000 hills. But you know, I never have bought music online, like on iTunes. I don't even know if iTunes still exists, but like that was back then. Um, before or since, I don't think I've ever bought music. I'm like, I'll listen to it on
MySpace. Are you
MySpace.
still on
On
MySpace?
MySpace. I was on MySpace. Um, okay, so but I bought this song, and it's I believe the Helsers sing it, and it was really popular a few years ago. It's called "No Longer Slaves," and he says, "I'm no longer a slave to sin. I am a child of God." Again and again and again, and I woke up to that song for 2 years. I am
Mm.
I am a child of God. And I didn't know it, but my husband sleeping next to me, who is addicted to pornography, in all kinds of mess, was waking up to that every day too. And he didn't know it was part of his freedom that was coming. And so
Woo!
it's so much truth of declaring the truth of God over our minds. We have the power to create new neural pathways to God thoughts. And when you create a new neural pathway and you stop taking the old one to the old thought, this one gets weaker. Not only does this get stronger when you take it, this one gets weaker. So then you are bringing your mind to such a renewed place that you don't even have to think about capturing the thoughts anymore because they just don't get in. It's just
Ah,
and in Deuteronomy 11. Oh, girl, I'm sorry. I know I need to tell.
go,
I'm gonna tell you one.
go.
Deuteronomy 11. Oh, the Lord showed this to me earlier this year, and it's just so beautiful. And I wish that I had my Bible in front of me so that I could read it to you. But go read it,
Well, tell
Deuteronomy.
me where you want me to go. Deuteronomy 11, what? I find it. I find it.
I don't know the verse reference, but it's talking about in Egypt. You had to water your crops like a vegetable garden. You actually had to
Mm-hmm.
go and get water and put it in a bucket and bring it over to your crops and water it. But in the new land where he's bringing you, the land waters itself.
Mm. It's Deuteronomy 11 at 10. I found it. You let
Go
me.
ahead,
Want me to read it to you?
read it.
Let me read it to you. Okay, hold on. I just took your words. Um,
And if you were in the Message translation, I read it in CSB. So
okay, let me read it. I'll read it in the message in the version you read it in. CSV.
CSB.
B is
The,
in boy.
yeah, B as in boy, Christian Standard Bible.
Got it. Let's see what we get.
Let's see what we
Here it
get.
is. And I think it's 11:10.
That
For the
sounds
land you are entering to possess is not like the land of Egypt from which you came from, where you sowed your seed and irrigated by hand as in a vegetable garden. But the land you are entering to possess is a land of mountains and valleys,
yes.
watered by rain from the sky. It is a land the Lord your God cares for. He is always watching over it from the beginning to the end of the year.
So this is what he showed me. Y'all, like, okay, back when Jesus was here, it was real simple to follow him. You literally just walked behind him. Okay.
Yes.
It's a little more abstract for us. It's just a little bit more abstract for us. So, yes, like the Israelites came out of a physical land where this was the truth, and they went to a new physical land where the rain watered everything, right? It was a lush land. It watered itself. Okay. This is our minds. Okay. So in Egypt, when we're in an unrenewed mind, we have to take every thought captive, just like Paul says, and we got to look at it. And we're going to say, is this good? Is
Yes.
God thought? Is this hope? Because if you have a thought that doesn't inspire hope, it's not from God. It's from you or
Not
from
from
Satan.
God.
So you need to then throw that out. It's a lot of work.
It
It's like
is a whole, oh my gosh, it's so much work to
it's
follow
exhausting.
Jesus.
It's grabbing the buckets, going to the Nile, getting the stuff, walking back and dumping it on there, and that's enough. You're gonna go back to the Nile, you're gonna get another bucket, you're gonna bring it out to your plants, okay, and that's how you live. Okay. But if you do this enough, he will bring you to a renewed mind, which is your promised land. Okay. And in the renewed mind, there are many ways we get there, many ways we get there. But in your renewed mind, it waters itself. Like, not
Mm.
that we don't have thoughts that aren't from God or things like that, but it's very rare. Like, it's really hard to get me super angry or offended. Like, I have a hard time getting offended about a lot of things. Like, even things that are horrible, horrific things. Like, I'm usually not offended because I've worked so hard
You've
to
worked on heart, you've worked on it though. You have literally committed your heart and soul and mind to changing the way you think about your response versus react.
distraction. Yes. Yes. And
That's
so,
why.
and that's the thing. And I have one more thing I gotta say, and I
Yeah.
don't know how long we're taking, but
Well,
um,
because we started late, look, I'm fine. It's
look, we're
4:22, but we had to stop and all that stuff. I think we go to 4:30. You're good.
okay.
Yeah.
So here's my thing. I have a real hard time with this phrase that we use a lot in the church. It's called that says, I'm just a sinner saved by grace. I have a
Why do
hard
you
time.
have a problem with that?
I have a hard time with this because it's claiming that you're a sinner. It would be more accurate to say, I was a sinner saved by grace.
Mm.
Sinner anymore. You are a saint. You're a saint. That is what Jesus says you are. It's all up and down the Bible. Look,
Mm-hmm.
his believers are saints. So when we are holding on to this wrong identity of sinner, and this is what we think that we are, our thoughts become beliefs, and our beliefs become behaviors. And then we think about the behaviors that we had, and those become our thoughts. And then our thoughts become beliefs. And so you can really break in either in your thoughts or in your behaviors, but the truth is, we struggle with sin because we think that we're supposed to.
Mm. Say it one more time. We struggle with sin because what?
Because we think we're supposed to struggle with sin. And people misread in Romans when Paul's talking about, I do what I don't want to do. He's talking about before Jesus. before Jesus, you struggle with all this stuff and it's crazy and confusing. You can't understand and you're having all these reactions and you do what you don't want to do and you have no control over it. But that is not a picture of the Holy Spirit. That is before. So in Romans, typically like before 8, we're talking about before you're saved. And then there's 8, there's transition. And then after that is after you're saved.
So let me ask this question, okay? Because I am saying this week I struggled. I struggled. Let me tell you, I struggled with thoughts of murder. I struggled with thoughts of suicide this week. I struggled with all kinds of thoughts. The only thing that saved me from doing something heinous was my training. It was really the training of where to take that, right? Like, it was what it felt like is it felt like a fireworks show at the end of a 4th of July. At the end of it, it felt like the enemy was coming at me with every possible idea. And I got to see how he works, right? Because the more mature you are in the beginning, he really don't got to do much because you're so untrained that you just, right? You don't even know. You're like a kid. But when you get more mature, it's kind of like I'm in the NFL now. I'm not playing Pop Warner. Now I'm in the NFL. And not only am I in the NFL, I'm in the Super Bowl. So he is firing bombs one after the other, boom, 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 boom. And really, the Lord was like, do you see how many are coming at you? Focus on me. Focus on me. Because you can't combat those. No weapon formed against you will prosper. So don't look at them. Just look at me. And that's what I had to do. I mean, I cried, I screamed, I cursed, I did all of the things. But when I got ready to make a decision about what I was going to do about it, I just said, Jesus, 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 Jesus. And eventually it just subsided and I could go to sleep, or a phone call would come, or a worship. But the really what he's looking for is, what will you choose?
What will you choose?
What will you choose? Will you choose me or will you react? Will you choose to respond or will you choose to react? Will you choose to respond to what I say is true or react to what you want to do?
Well, and I think the thing is too, like, you don't have power to stop it. You don't.
No.
He does. And in his power, you can choose. Because you have the Holy Spirit, you can choose.
I can choose.
The word is abundantly clear that you will always have a way out, no matter how much you are tempted. And I would say this too, not all of your thoughts are your own.
Yeah.
Not all your thoughts are your own. You can hear 3 voices. You can hear the Father, you can hear yourself, and you can hear the enemy. And so I definitely would say in this season, just because I know specifically what you're going through, you shared a little bit of that with me. Definitely the enemy. Definitely the enemy. And so being able to, like, what are our tools against the enemy? It's the truth. It's the sword of the Spirit, right? The truth of the Word of God. So you may be feeling attacked, but you're not an attacked person. You are, because we know the truth of God says that you are protected. God says you're a protected person. Go look it up in the Word. You're protected. So you're a protected person experiencing attack.
So no weapon formed against me will prosper.
It's a distinction, right? You use no weapon formed against me will prosper. That was your sword. You were saying no. So you use the word of God, and that is your tool. And I think what happens is we take our experience and we form an identity out of it. Going back to our conversation, we take our experience and we form an identity. And that identity often does not line up with who God says that we are. So our biggest tool is saying, God, who do you say who I am? And trusting that. He says you are protected, you are loved, you are valued, you are worthy. And you are worthy because he says you are. He doesn't need us. He does not need us to worship him. He was just fine before he made us.
Before he made us, yeah. He was complete.
He was complete. He's fine.
He was complete.
But even though he doesn't need us, he still loves us because he wants to. That's it. There's no other
This
reason.
has been so good. And this was part one. And I'm going to ask you, will you come back for part two? I think I'm going to bring some friends from the Tapestry Network who have helped me walk through this journey. And I'm going to see if they will come and join in this conversation, because I think those friends, putting them in the starting five, and maybe we'll have Miss Sherwood come and be my co-host for that conversation. We'll go back to the traditional method, because I think this is a conversation that deserves a second round. And I think when we come back, we really give the classroom some tips and tricks and some opportunities to get some freedom around this area. What do you think?
Uh, Absolutely. I love it.
I love you. I love you. Where can they find you?
Okay, so probably the easiest way to find me would just be on my website. It's just bethmedley.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram technically, but I don't really do Instagram.
I know.
Find me on Facebook at Beth Medley, Life and Leadership Coach. I'm in a pink dress with a jean jacket on, so that's me. Holding some.
Well, please find her, because she's amazing. I am so thankful for you. I promise you, we just met this week. So lessons from the journey, you really are on my journey to transformation and healing, growth and development. It is a master class. When I tell you I want to help you master the game of life and experience the life of a legend, that is the mission, uniting and changing the world together. So please join us next Sunday, right here, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, for Lessons from the Journey. I'm your host, Sean L. Brown. Thank you so much. Get those nuggets. Come back with your journal and pen set, because next week class will be back in. Have a great week.